Hi, I'm Max, you can call me D, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi and welcome to my channel family. So welcome to my annual yearly big cosplay making thing, where we've made Strawberry Miku, we've made Snow Miku last year. This time we are celebrating the animation of Steel Ball Run from JoJo, and we are making Gyro Zeppeli. This is the guy. So I know I'm pretty late to this, considering that it's the 25th of October right now, and SBR was announced quite a while ago, but I want to give myself a deadline for this cosplay to at least come out somewhere before the anime, which is not that tight of a deadline since it's coming out on March 19th, 2026, I think, somewhere in March. And as I said, it's October right now, so we have about 4.5 months to make this cosplay, and I think it's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna get right into the start, which is gonna be his shirt, which is purple, and I'm gonna be crocheting a baby tee. I'm gonna be using this pattern. You can find that link down in the pinned comment as always. It is not my pattern, so definitely go support the creator. And yeah, I'm gonna get to it. So this cosplay is like incredibly spontaneous. I have no plans for this. The only thing that I actually have is like the purple yarn. Yeah, peak planning. So I just finished kind of making the neckline, and now my hands hurt, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a break. And while that's happening, I'm gonna tell you who the hell Gyro even is. So who is Gyro? Well, I've got the JoJo wiki pulled up here, and I'm gonna read a bit of stuff about him for you. Also, massive warning for spoilers, just in case, because I don't know if I'm gonna spoil anything. So Gyro is one of the protagonists of the 7th part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is called Steel Ball Run, which I've been calling and will continue to call SBR for short. Gyro Zeppeli isn't his born name. His actual name is Julius Caesar Zeppeli, but I guess he just prefers to use Gyro. The 7th part of JoJo, SBR, is basically about a race on horses across the US, and all of this happens after the universe reset in part 6, so all of this happens in the 1850s, which is kind of interesting considering that Gyro is wearing like bright green lipstick in those times, and he's also like kind of a cowboy, and he's also pretty fruity for Johnny, I think. Also, Johnny is the main character of this part, for those who don't know. My yapping is very inconsistent, I'm sorry. Also, Gyro is the one who has the steel balls, which are the green balls that are on his attire. Also, he's got golden teeth, or like grills, I don't know if that's what they're called. And the squares on his face are actually a beard, which I didn't realize until I actually read about it, because I just thought that it was like, I don't know, makeup or something, but it turns out that it's facial hair, so that's pretty interesting. He's pretty cocky about himself and initially appears as pretty aggressive. He's kind of also overconfident, I would say. He's like, he likes to feed off of other people sometimes, especially during the race. His main skill, instead of like the usual stance, would be his mastery of spinning said steel balls. He's very proud of that for whatever reason. Like, he genuinely has a lot of pride about it. He is like pretty aggressive so far that he's willing to harm people, but he's not willing to kill them, unlike Johnny. But of course, Gyro still has a good side. He prefers to help anyone who asks for his help. But personality wise, he's like pretty eccentric. The JoJo Wiki describes him as bombastic, which I think is pretty fitting for him. He likes lots of puns, lots of gags, and he generally has pretty stupid humor, I would say, which is something that I really like, which is why I also want to cosplay him, because he's kind of me. And he also has his Pizza Mozzarella song, and is generally pretty funny. Now, of course, Gyro's steel balls have several abilities that I will not be getting into here, because that would be for a 4-hour talk. He likes to take dangerous shortcuts during the race, even if it costs him going through some pretty nasty terrain in the manga, which is honestly an interesting choice. I mean, it's very visible that he's very competitive and he really wants to win the race. And just generally, he's very ambitious and also kind of a silly guy, which I love about him. So that was my shallow dive into Gyro. And now I'm gonna get back into making the baby tea. because, well, my hands still hurt, but you're not gonna know how long I'm gonna take a break for. You don't know that. I'm gonna cut that out. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna get back to making it, and I'm gonna meet you at some point of me making it. Okay, so I just finished the shirt. This is what it looks like. I'm wearing a binder underneath because this is really small, and I'm generally going to be wearing a binder also with the cosplay. And the shirt, as I said, it's pretty small, so I'm gonna block this because I don't have any more of this yarn, and unfortunately I cannot buy any more because while I was working on the shirt, the yarn suddenly got discontinued. I don't have a chance to buy any more of this, but I'm gonna try to block this with a hair dryer because that's how I block my things, because I don't have a steamer or an iron, so let's block this. Now, I used acrylic yarn, so I had to block it with heat, and right here you can see a pretty big difference on what the blocking actually does. What I was looking for here was mostly length and to loosen up the fibers so that it would drape better around my body, which didn't really end up working out as much as I wanted, but basically you just keep blasting it with the hair dryer until it eventually loosens up to something that looks more like what you wanted. And I generally block with a hairdryer because I don't have a steamer. And then you just give it the last few tucks to make sure that it keeps the shape that you want. And then you let it cool down properly in its shape, and then you're done. So I just finished blocking the shirt, I tried it on, I even made this little transition. And as you can see, the blocking does make quite a bit of a difference. It doesn't feel as stiff anymore, but obviously if I had a steamer it would be a little better. Hair dryers aren't like the best thing for blocking, so I'm thinking of investing in a steamer, but I'm not sure yet. But anyways, this is the base of Gyro's shirt done. And now I'm gonna have to shade it, and I'm gonna make the little green balls, buttons, I'm not sure what they are, that are on top of his shirt. So let's go. So I first decided to make the buttons or balls that are on his shirt, which are green, and it was incredibly easy. Generally crochet circles are not a big issue for me, so this is what they ended up looking like, and I also gave them a little bit of a shine at the end. Also, if you haven't picked up on it yet, I'm going to be excessively shading or overshading my cosplay, because guess what? JoJo is very well known for its excessive shading and its general art style, so I'm gonna put up a few pictures here so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I generally think that this looks really cool and it gives it a really nice effect, and I also think that it's gonna make my cosplay look a little better, so let's properly shade this entire thing. Now for all the shading on this cosplay, I just went ham at it with my black eyeshadow, which by the way looks like this. It's been broken for a while, but as an alternative person, I'm not going to waste, and I used it for almost all the shading on the cosplay. And I also had to put a paper underneath because I was worried that it was gonna get all over my carpet, and this was the beautiful aftermath of that, which I predicted correctly, but this was the most gorgeous result I could have ever gotten out of using just eyeshadow. Now, the shading for the shirt was a little harder. I decided to use paper and I actually used sewing pins to pin them down so that they wouldn't move while I was shading. And it was way harder to shade, obviously, than the buttons or balls. I'm still not sure what they are. And I eventually made a grid that looked something like my reference photo, and I started just going ham at it. And I felt like I was overdoing it at some parts while I was doing it, but then I took off the paper and realized that it's actually pretty okay. So you're gonna see that in a little bit. And afterwards I sprayed it with a shit ton of hairspray that I actually use for my wigs, but I just wanted to lock the eyeshadow in some way so that just in case it rains or anything, I have at least some kind of protection. All I had to do after was just sew on the buttons, which actually took a very long time, but the time-lapse is obviously gonna make that easier to watch for you. So I sewed them on and then the shirt was done. And obviously I gave it one last spray of hairspray just to lock everything in. Guys, this looks fucking fire. I love how this turned out. It's so pretty, I'm so proud of it. About a month later, I started working on the pants, and I gotta tell you about the way I pattern my crochet pants because, I don't know, it's just a little weird. Normally you'd make the waistband increase for your hips and then work down the pant legs, but because I have a pretty big difference between my butt and my waist, I'm instead going to work the waist as a singular rectangle and then work down the pant legs, and I'm gonna cinch it up a little later. So now that you know how I pattern my pants, I can finally show you the footage so you don't think I'm weird for not increasing, because it's just never worked for me, because when I do my waist measurements I'm just not able to pull it over my butt and I don't like wiggling into my pants, so I'm going to cinch it up later on once I'm actually finished with some elastic thread. I've done that in my pattern video for shorts. This is basically the same process, so if you want a little bit more of a detailed explanation on that, then definitely go check that video out. I separated the legs by counting down to the middle of my stitches, which ended up being 44 stitches on each side, and then I did a chain in the middle. I did 25 chains, which seems like a lot, but it actually helped. And then you continue to work in the round for each pant leg, and that's literally it. Now, I was limited on materials, so I worked on the first leg, obviously first, until I used my second skein, and then my cat decided to help by being annoying and eating my yarn. And then once I finished the second skein, I started on the second leg so that I could then split the last one between the two legs, because as I said, I was limited on materials and I kind of needed to divide it evenly between the pant legs. Obviously, you won't have to do this if you know that you'll have enough materials for both of the legs, but I was just honestly willing to make them a little shorter and try to block them longer than just try to risk it. And this is what the pants looked like after I finally finished the second skein, and I was getting started on the third. They were reaching about right below my knees. There was lots of room in the crotch. I even did a few stretches to properly test everything, and they were looking really great. The waist is still very loose, but as I said, we're gonna cinch that up later. So now it was time to move on. And by move on, I mean divide my yarn kinks into two equal parts so that I could actually work separately without having to weight the pants over and over again, and this actually really helped with the process of this. It took me up until halfway through January to finish these pants, and let's be honest, most of it was procrastination because it was very, very, very repetitive, and you know I don't like enjoying repetitive processes. I had the same issue with my Snow Miku. But at the end of the day, my yarn looked like this tangled mess and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. But hey, I pushed through the last few bits and the pants ended up kind of in a capri length. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but it looked hilarious. And then I just made some appliques for the pants. I know nobody cares about this, but I've been sitting on the floor sewing these things on for the past 40 minutes and I wanna cry. It's pretty late at night and this is a stupid ass angle, but the pants are freshly finished. I'm letting them dry because I drenched them in hairspray so that the eyeshadow wouldn't come off. And I want to show them to you before I actually end this section of the video. The pants are looking cool as hell. They're kind of not long enough, but honestly I'm just gonna fix that with some tall boots. I'm thinking of adding some sheeting to the butt, but I'm not sure about doing that yet. But yeah, The pants are done with this, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is how I shaded the hat, which at this point in time is already done. And then we're gonna get on to the details of the cosplay. To actually edit the hat, I had to wear it because there wasn't enough space on my table while I was working on the strap, which I was just altering a little bit with a few stripes, and then I went ham at it with my eyeshadow once again, and this time I used up almost all of it. This is a pretty short progress video, but it did end up looking quite good. Now, the only actual video of the finished hat I have is this short that I sent to my friend, where I talk about how much eyeshadow it used up and how I'm actually pretty proud of it. So this is the only footage you're getting, except for like maybe some pictures at the end if I figure it out. But basically, all I was talking about was me shading this entire thing. I was checking my notes for the goggles and they said that they were square, but the reference picture said they were round, and you can tell I was absolutely over the cosplay by this point, so I made a maquette that somehow ended up too square for my liking. So I made a second maquette that guess what? I also didn't like it, and it didn't work either, so I just went the simplest route that I could and I made a shape that I would just glue some cardboard walls to. Then I moved on to the cardboard, which I just did with a hot glue gun because I did not feel like doing it with liquid glue, and they ended up looking quite decent, so let's go paint them. So I didn't get all of the painting on camera, but I did get the base layer and the holes in Gyro's goggles, and this is what they look like. Not the best work, but the shading that I did off camera kind of helped them a little bit, and then I literally just slapped them on the hat with more hot glue. This is a very awkward angle, but hey, it ended up looking quite good, and it also holds on very well. So this is the head done. Let's go look at the details. So what I'm working on right now is basically the thing that's on Gyro's forearms, which is like some kind of like bracer thing. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm gonna be depicting that as arm warmers or hand warmers because I just don't feel like thinking about more closures, but I'm gonna have to figure out how that's gonna work with the cape. I mean, we're gonna see in general if I even make that, because who's gonna be crocheting a whole ass cape? Not me. Not me. But yeah, I'm gonna make a pair of arm warmers, which is pretty easy. It's just a rectangle with a hole in it. It's like a fingerless glove, so yeah, and then I'm just gonna have to think about that cape, and then we'll be done, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna see you later. In the end, I made one arm warmer and one bracelet thing because I didn't have enough yarn. Let's see the cape. For the cape, I hit an absolute thrifting jackpot, and I thrifted like a tunic thing that I cut the side seams out of, and I used those side seams as the straps that would hold the cape on my shoulders, and I added a few tassels, and in general it ended up looking pretty great on me. It was kind of like last minute, but the effect is there and I like it enough to actually wear it with the cosplay, so I think this was mission successful. And now all that's left of this video is for me to show you the finished cosplay, so enjoy some fancy shots. So my feelings about this cosplay are kind of sentimental, but also weirdly unattached. I don't know how to feel about it. The makeup is a little off, I do not like it, and the wig is kind of ass, but honestly, the rest of the cosplay looks quite great and I'm pretty pleased with it, even though it does look a little weird sometimes. And the major thing that I found out about the cosplay while I was trying it on is that these attachments for the balls don't work at all. And I don't know how to fix that. And I don't know if you noticed, but this cosplay has functional pockets that can hold the balls if I actually lose them. And they're made from pretty hard yarn from the same one that the shirt is made out of, so it's pretty sturdy. As always, I struck a few poses and kind of walked around my backyard for a little bit because it is honestly resemblant of like a dead wasteland at this time of year, especially because winter just ended and it's finally getting warm. I don't know. I think that this cosplay ended up better than I thought it would, and while I was filming this it was super windy, so the wig was flying everywhere, but hey, it ended up looking pretty decent and I'm proud of it. And that's it for the entire cosplay video. I am quickly filming this outro because this video is supposed to come out in like 2 days and I haven't finished editing it yet. So this time, even though it was another big cosplay, I took a little bit of creative liberty, and I also kind of toned down the amount of work that I had to do during the time. Even though I still procrastinated for like a solid 2 months, it was still not as much work as, you know, my strawberry Miku or my snow Miku. Those were like massive projects. This one was big, but it was manageable. Honestly, the worst thing about it was the pants, just because it was like super repetitive and it was just the same stitch over and over again and it was boring and other stuff. But other than that, I am super proud of the cosplay. I love how it looks. I have to do something about my makeup though. Like, you know, I did my usual JoJo makeup and I didn't like how it looked. So I'm gonna have to figure out something with that because I did not like the way that looked. But yeah, that's it for the rest of the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then I would be happy for any kind of support. I am terribly sorry for my upload schedule, but it's probably gonna change to uploading about once a month now because school and exams and important life stuff. So I'm sorry, but that's it from me for now, and I'm gonna see you in the next video. I don't know when. See you.